My name is Evelyn May Carter, and I'm 76 years old. Most people call me Grandma Evie now, but there's a past behind this wrinkled smile that I've carried in silence for decades. I was just 7 when I first saw my father hit my mother. It was a Tuesday. I remember because my teacher gave me a gold star for reading aloud without stuttering. I was so proud, and I couldn't wait to tell Mama. But when Daddy came home, he didn't care about gold stars. He came in smelling like gasoline and bourbon, his boots dragging across the wooden floor like something dead. He didn't even say hello. Just slammed the door behind him and threw the whiskey bottle so hard it exploded against the kitchen wall. Glass rained down like fire. Then he hit her. Right across the face. No warning. No words. Just the sound of skin meeting skin and my mama's soft cry. I can still hear it. I screamed. I couldn't move. She turned to me with blood at the edge of her mouth and whispered, "Evie, baby, go to your room." But I didn't run. I just stood there, 7 years old, holding a paper star in my hand, watching the man I called Daddy tear our world apart. That was the night my childhood ended. The next morning, Mama wore sunglasses in the kitchen. It wasn't sunny. She stirred oatmeal in a chipped pot, her wrist swollen, her cheek an ugly shade of purple peeking out from under her frames. She smiled when I sat at the table. A tired, crooked smile. "Eat up, baby," she said. "Big day at school." I nodded. But all I could see were her bruises. She didn't speak about what happened the night before. We never did. It became the rule of the house: if it hurt, we hid it. If it bled, we covered it. If he came home angry, we prayed it was the wall he'd punch, not us. Mama wore more sunglasses that year than I could count. Even on rainy days. And I learned to watch her eyes instead of her words. My father had a favorite armchair. Faded brown corduroy, slumped to the left like it was tired of holding him. Every night, he sank into that chair with a bottle and a scowl. It was the throne of his rage. He'd yell at the TV. At Mama. At the ghosts in his mind. I used to think if I was quiet enough, I could disappear. But even silence didn't protect us. He'd shout about the price of groceries or the way Mama folded his socks. Nothing was safe from his anger. And if he didn't lash out that night, we'd whisper thanks to God under our breath, until tomorrow. Because in our house, peace was always temporary. I asked Mama once, when I was 9, why she stayed. Her hands were covered in flour as she kneaded dough, the way her Mama had taught her. Her eyes were far away, somewhere between a memory and a bruise. She didn't look at me. "Because love isn't always kind, Evie," she whispered. "But sometimes it's all you've got." That sentence lived inside me for years. I repeated it like a prayer, not understanding how love could live beside fear. I watched her try so hard to protect me with her body, her lies, her warm meals and bedtime songs. But even at 9, I knew a truth Mama couldn't say out loud. She was afraid. And love, when twisted by fear, becomes a cage. School was the only place I could breathe. I sat in the front row. I answered every question. I volunteered to erase the chalkboard, sweep the floor, help in the library, anything to stay a little longer. Miss Edna, my teacher, once placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Evie, you're special. You've got more heart than most grown folks." I wanted to tell her the truth, that I did my homework by candlelight while Mama nursed bruises. That I read under my covers to drown out the yelling. But I just smiled. Because at school, I could pretend. Pretend that I was safe. Pretend that I wasn't just the girl with a drunk for a father and a mother who flinched at every noise. There's a smell I will never forget, the mix of bourbon, sweat, and blood. It clung to my father like a second skin. He came home every night with that sour stench wrapping around him like a warning. You could smell him before you heard the keys in the door. It was the scent of dread. I used to lie in bed with the sheets pulled over my head, listening for the sound of his boots on the porch. I'd count his steps. 4 to the door. 1 to kick it open. 3 to the kitchen. Then silence, or screaming. Mama always met him at the door like a soldier preparing for war. Sometimes with dinner. Sometimes with silence. Sometimes with her hands trembling behind her back. But no matter how she greeted him, he found something wrong. Once, when I was 10, he flipped our kitchen table because Mama burned the pork chops. The plate shattered. The food flew across the room. He grabbed her by the wrist and slammed her against the sink. I ran to her, but he shoved me back. You want to act like a man? He snarled. You can get what men get. And he raised his hand. But for the first time in my life, Mama stepped between us. He hit her instead. Twice. That was the first night I realized something important. She didn't just stay to protect herself. She stayed to shield me. She took the blows that should have landed on me. That's a kind of love I'll never understand, and never forget. Most people find peace on Sundays, church, family meals, quiet walks. But not us. Sundays were the worst. That was when my father drank the most. He said it was because of God's judgment and quiet demons. But I think it was just because he hated himself. Hated what he wasn't. Hated the stillness that made him face what he had done to us. He never went to church. Said God was a liar. Mama used to whisper prayers anyway, mostly while she cleaned the blood off her lip or iced her ribs. One Sunday, he took the Holy Bible off the shelf and threw it into the fireplace. I was 12. Mama screamed and tried to pull it out, burning her hands. You don't need God, he said, slurring. You need to shut your mouth. I remember watching that Bible burn, the gold lettering curling into ash. It felt like a piece of our hope went up with it. That night, Mama cried in the bathtub for hours. I sat outside the door, back pressed against the wall, and hummed her favorite song. She didn't speak, but I knew she heard me. That was how we survived Sundays. In silence. In secret songs. In holding on to what little pieces of each other we could. I used to love Christmas. Mama would save up all year to buy me something, even if it was just a book or a hand-stitched scarf. She baked gingerbread cookies from scratch, the house smelled like cinnamon and warmth, and for a few hours, we'd pretend we were a normal family. But the year I turned 13, Christmas disappeared. My father came home drunk on Christmas Eve, broke every ornament on the tree, and dragged the gifts into the yard. Santa ain't real, he said. And neither is happiness. He made Mama burn the wrapping paper in the fireplace. Said it was nonsense, a waste, a woman's trick. I cried myself to sleep that night, holding the only thing Mama had managed to save, a paperback copy of Little Women wrapped in a pillowcase. The next morning, we didn't speak. There were no gifts. No breakfast. No music. Just the three of us in silence, sitting in a room that used to hold hope but now only echoed with broken memories. Years later, even when I had my own children, it took everything in me to love Christmas again. Because that day taught me how quickly joy could be stolen, and how deep its absence could be. I found it when I was 14. tucked inside an old cookie tin behind the cleaning supplies under the kitchen sink. A letter. Folded neatly. Yellowed from age. Addressed to no one. It was in Mama's handwriting. I recognized the careful curves of her letters, how she always made her capital M's like little mountains. I read it in secret, under the covers that night, flashlight in hand. If something ever happens to me, please know this wasn't your fault. I stayed because I thought love could fix him. I was wrong. But I tried. I tried for you. I know I should have left. I know I should have taken you far away. But I didn't know how. And for that, I'm sorry. You deserved more. And I hope one day, you'll find it. With all the love I have. Mama. I cried until I couldn't breathe. Not because I was angry at her, but because I finally understood. She wasn't weak. She was trapped. And she was scared. That letter became my secret weapon. My reason to survive. Mama wanted better for me, even if she couldn't give it herself. The beatings never stopped. But I changed. I got taller. Stronger. Angrier. By 15, I wasn't the scared little girl hiding under the bed. One night, he came home ranting, kicking over chairs, slamming his fists on the table. He grabbed Mama by the hair and dragged her toward the stairs. Something in me snapped. I ran upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and called the police. It was the first time I ever dialed that number. The dispatcher asked for my name. I whispered, Evie Carter. My father's hurting my mother again. Please come. She told me to stay on the line. I didn't. I dropped the phone, opened my window, and screamed into the street, Help us. The neighbors heard. The police came. He was arrested for the night. Mama begged them not to press charges. I'll never forget what she told me after they left. You were brave, she said. But don't ever put yourself between me and him again. I couldn't survive losing you too. I nodded. But deep down, I knew something had changed. I wasn't going to be his victim forever. I never planned to tell anyone what was happening at home. But sometimes, pain leaks out. It was my high school counselor, Mrs. Harris, who first noticed. She called me in after English class one Thursday and offered me a piece of peppermint candy. Her office smelled like lavender and books. There was a worn brown chair across from her desk that felt safer than my whole house. She didn't ask about bruises. She didn't ask about my father. She just said, Evie, I know when someone's holding their breath for too long. You can talk to me. I said nothing. But my silence was loud enough. For weeks, I went back during lunch. She let me sit there, quiet. No pressure. Just presence. Then one day, I whispered it, he hits her. Sometimes me. He drinks. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. She just nodded. I believe you, she said. And it's not your fault. No one had ever said that to me before. I was 16 and finally getting bold. I had a part-time job at the library. I stayed late most nights, folding books into my backpack like they were treasure maps out of my life. One Saturday, I got home late. Daddy was sitting on the porch. Drunk. Angry. Suspicious. Where the hell were you? He growled. I was working, I said, my voice steady. With who? With books, I answered, not thinking. He stood up fast and slapped me across the face so hard I saw stars. Right there on the porch. Right in front of Mrs. Caldwell from down the road. She gasped. He turned, ready to yell at her too, but she fled. Later, Mama brought me ice and a towel and said, "You shouldn't talk back." That crushed me more than the slap. I knew then that no one was coming to save us. Not the neighbors. Not the family who never visited. Not even Mama. I would have to save myself. By 17, I had a plan. In my closet, behind a loose floorboard, I hid a folder. Inside, photocopies of my school records, my social security card, and a list of community shelters that Mrs. Harris had quietly handed me. There were bus schedules, maps, emergency phone numbers. I kept spare cash I earned shelving books in an envelope labeled Hope. Every time he screamed, I thought about that folder. Every time Mama cried behind her locked bathroom door, I touched it. It was my secret weapon, not to run away just yet, but to remind myself I could. That someday, I would. It gave me power. And for a girl like me, power felt like breath after drowning. It was raining that day. I came home from school soaked through, backpack clinging to my spine. The lights were off. The air was heavy. I found Mama in the kitchen, collapsed on the floor. A bottle of Tylenol spilled beside her. Her lips were pale. Her pulse weak. I screamed. Called 911. Held her hand while the ambulance came. In the hospital, I sat beside her bed as machines beeped around us. She woke up once, eyes glassy, and whispered, "I didn't want to die. I just wanted silence." She survived. But something inside her had shattered completely. And I realized, this house wasn't just a prison. It was a grave waiting for us. I left 2 weeks after Mama came home. She was different, quiet, hollow, like a ghost of the woman who used to hum lullabies. Daddy didn't stop drinking. Didn't stop hitting. And one night, after he threw a chair at her and split her eyebrow open, I knew. It was time. I waited until he passed out. Helped Mama clean the blood off her face. Then I packed my folder, my books, my backpack. "Mama," I said softly, "come with me." She looked at the door. Looked at me. Then shook her head. "I can't," she said. I cried. Begged. But she held my face and said, "You go. Live. Get out of this place. That's how you save me." So I kissed her goodbye. And at 2:17 a.m., with the stars above me and fear clawing at my back, I stepped out the door and didn't look back. I didn't sleep that first night. The shelter was small, tucked between a pawn shop and a diner, but to me, it was freedom. The woman at the front desk, Miss Carla, had gentle eyes and a clipboard. She didn't ask too many questions. She gave me a cot near the back. The sheets smelled of detergent and old dreams. The room held 3 other girls, all of us wounded in different ways. But those blue curtains? They meant hope. I sat by the window, staring at the city lights, wondering if Mama had survived the night. Wondering if Daddy had noticed I was gone. There was no turning back. But I didn't want to. For the first time in my life, I had done something that terrified me, and it hadn't killed me. That felt like power. I started writing letters to Mama. Every night. Sometimes 1 sentence, sometimes 6 pages. "I hope you're eating. Are you safe? Do you still hum that Patsy Cline song in the kitchen?" I never mailed any of them. Not because I didn't love her, but because I didn't want to give my father the chance to find me. I was scared he might trace them, that he might punish her more just for loving me. Still, the letters helped. They were how I kept her with me, even while I tried to build a life without her. Sometimes, I wrote her poetry. Other times, memories. But every single letter ended the same way. One day, I'll come back for you. Love, your Evelyn. At 19, I got my first apartment, a cramped studio with peeling paint, a leaking faucet, and a single window that overlooked a parking lot. But it was mine. I paid for it with wages from a diner job and scholarship money. I learned to boil pasta, clean the drain, and patch my own holes in the wall. I decorated it with second-hand books and postcards from places I'd never been. There were nights I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from me and missing Mama so much I could barely breathe. But I kept going. Every scraped knee and burned meal reminded me I had escaped. And that made every struggle worth it. I was 22. I had just finished community college and was working at a domestic violence nonprofit. The irony didn't escape me, a girl raised in fear now teaching others how to survive. Then one night, I got a voicemail. It was his voice. Evie. I know where you are. I froze. For days, I didn't eat. Didn't sleep. I watched the shadows outside my apartment window. Changed my route to work. Locked the door 3 times. Then I remembered something Mama told me once. The only way to kill a monster is to stop being afraid of it. So I called him back. I'm not that little girl anymore, I said. You don't get to control me. And if you come near me again, I will make sure you never hurt another woman in your life. He didn't reply. He never called again. I was 25 when it came, a letter in Mama's handwriting. It was short. My dearest Evie. I heard through someone you were okay. I prayed every day that you made it. I'm still here. But I'm older now. Tired. I kept all your pictures. And your room still has your books. I'm proud of you. Even if I never get to say it in person. I love you. Always. Mama. I cried for hours. Because she was still alive. Because she knew I'd survived. Because after all the hurt, she still loved me. I pressed the letter to my chest and whispered, I'm coming back. Not to stay. But to show her who I became. It had been over a decade since I last walked the roads of my childhood. The town hadn't changed much, still the same dusty sidewalks, the old hardware store, the faded billboard advertising a barbecue joint that had closed years ago. But I had changed. I was now 30. A social worker. A mother of one. A woman who had survived things that used to seem unbearable. I didn't drive to the house right away. I stopped at the park I used to play in. I sat on the swing and remembered being 6, pushing Mama's hand away as I tried to fly higher. Before the bruises. Before the fear. Then I drove down the street to the house. It looked smaller. The front yard was overgrown. The paint chipped. The mailbox still read Carlton. I knocked. My heart thudded in my chest. And Mama opened the door. She was thinner than I remembered. More fragile. Her hair had grayed, her eyes dimmed, but when she saw me, they lit up like sunrise. Evie, she breathed. My baby girl. We didn't speak for a long time. Just held each other on the porch, surrounded by weeds and time and things left unsaid. Inside, the house smelled the same, faintly of coffee and old wood. But something else was missing. He's gone, she said, pouring tea with shaking hands. 2 years ago. Drank himself to death. I didn't speak. She looked down. I'm sorry. For not leaving with you. For letting him do what he did. I didn't know how to protect you. Tears welled in her eyes. But I never stopped loving you. I reached across the table and held her hand. I know, I whispered. And I meant it. I am a grandmother of 5. I tell them stories about rain and books and how the moon used to be my only friend. I tell them not because I want them to feel sorry for me, but because I want them to know. We can break cycles. We can grow from the darkest soil. We can survive things no one should ever go through, and still become soft, kind, strong. This story is mine. But it belongs to anyone who ever hid in a closet, cried quietly in the night, or wondered if they were lovable despite the pain. You are. You always were. And like me, you can make it out. Thanks for listening. Like this video and subscribe for more inspirational stories.